Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video. Want to go over a plethora of information today, including a couple of Epic Game Store exclusives, or rather, I should say, timed exclusives, making their return to Steam, or in one case, its debut. Metro Exodus came back a little while ago, and then Genesis Alpha 1 also came back with Metro Exodus. We have some other interesting information to go over, including its sales numbers, which gives us an idea of the impact of these exclusivity deals and how they're going to impact sales overall. And honestly, personally speaking, I am very surprised with how well Metro Exodus is selling for a variety of different reasons. I don't know if that's a sign to compel these developers to, do more exclusivity agreements, but we'll talk all about that. Speaking of sales numbers, the Pokemon-like title in Temtem has sold very well on PC. We'll go over the sales numbers on that, and a major demo is coming with the Resident Evil 3 demo being on the way. Capcom noting that they'll have more details in the near future. We'll talk that at the end of this video. First up, let's talk these EGS game returns on Steam. So, with a lot of these Epic Game Store's exclusivity agreements, that one-year cycle is coming up. If you guys remember, a lot of those exclusivity agreements were made in the first half or, within the first portion of 2019. Well, now we're getting deeper and deeper into 2020, and that means those one-year timed exclusivity agreements are coming up, and Metro Exodus came up a little while ago, and I didn't get a chance to really talk about it, but the game was released at $39.99, and it also did have a launch discount, 40% off for I think it was $26 or something like that, if my math is correct there. It would be $24, 40% is $16 off. You didn't get the DLC, so that was a little bit of a bummer. They do have the Gold Edition, which includes the DLC, but I would have liked it. I mean, it's been a year. I would have liked it had they just released it on Steam, do like the Complete Edition or whatever the case may be. $30, you get the DLC, you do Steam users at least something nice by doing that. And I feel like the game being a year old, you'd still be paying a premium, given the fact that the game is available on Xbox Game Pass. At least I believe it is still available. Metro Exodus I thought was a really good game. I did not think it was quite as good as Metro 2033 and Last Light, but that's reminiscent of what I often say about Batman Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight not being as good as Batman Arkham Asylum or Arkham City. Those first two games were really good. 2033 and Last Light I thought were both fantastic games. I did not think Exodus was quite at that level. However, it's still a very good game, and that post-apocalyptic atmosphere that the first two games generated, that is still absolutely here in Metro Exodus, and there's still a lot of fun to be had. It's just that if you've already waited a year, I would say add this one to your wishlist and wait until it's south of $20, or just go the Game Pass route and play it through Game Pass. Whichever way you go, I definitely would not be paying $40 for it at this point. I just feel like that's a little bit too much, but the game is high quality and I definitely would give it a shout. But also, if you've never played Metro 2033 or Metro Last Light, do play those games first, as they are worthwhile, and the games are, of course, connected, so that will behoove you to play through 2033 and Last Light, and as I said, I do think those are the better games. Also, while staying on the topic of Metro Exodus, I do want to note that the publisher of Metro Exodus did note that it's performing well on Steam despite its delayed launch. It's detailed on PC Gamer, but Metro Exodus caused a bit of a ruckus when it was pulled from Steam after Deep Silver decided to launch it exclusively on the Epic Game Store instead. Obviously, this meant that EGS gave Deep Silver a significant amount of money that we don't know the exact amount. However, it had to have been relatively significant since the rumblings of what some other games like Control got were just enormous. So for a Metro Exodus, you would have to think that it was a significant amount of money. It looks like a lot of prospective players stuck to their guns and waited for the exclusivity deal to end, as it's selling fairly well for a game that's been available elsewhere for so long. Deep Silver's parent company, Embracer Group, has released its Q3 earnings report addressing how Metro Exodus is doing on Steam and noting, quote, "I was happy to see it performing well, selling about 200,000 copies already, and it was surprising to see one big country, Asia, the biggest country, buying the product," said Embracer's CEO Lars Wingfors about the Steam launch of Metro Exodus. 200,000 copies is a significant amount of copies. Obviously, had the game launched day and day on Steam with every other platform, it would sell a lot more than 200,000. But you're talking about from a Deep Silver and Embracer Group standpoint, again, this is not something that is really up to 4A Games. 4A Games is just a developer, so targeting your frustration to them really had no point. I don't know why people did that at all, and targeting the past Metro titles that 4A Games, bled, they poured sweat, they teared, whatever the case may be. Maybe that's going a little bit too far, but you guys get the idea. I don't know why people were targeting those games. I just thought that was a little whack, but nonetheless, from the publishing standpoint, you're talking about getting a significant amount of money upfront from Epic Games, and it was a significant amount. You can still sell the game on EGS, you put it on Xbox Game Pass, you got all that money upfront, and then a year later, you end up releasing the game on Steam, and it still sells 200,000 copies. While that might not be the greatest sign for consumers and gamers, that's a pretty good sign for the publisher thinking, hey, we can just go the EGS route, we can get all this money from them, and then we can release the game a year later on Steam, and people will still end up buying it. That says a lot about consumer habits. However, I raise you guys the question, is EGS really interested in signing these big exclusivity deals? Because I mentioned it before, we haven't heard anything regarding a big exclusivity deal in quite a while. Maybe they realized this was just a money pit, and the amount of money that they're investing in acquiring these exclusives, they aren't paying dividends, because I'm sure they paid a significant amount of money for Metro Exodus. Now that's come up. Genesis Alpha 1, which we'll talk about in a second, that's come up. Borderlands 3, 2 months more, and that should be coming up, and that should be coming to Steam, and all of these other games. Eventually, Control will be on Steam. Eventually, Shenmue 3 will be on Steam, at least by the looks of it. Was that money well spent? At this point, based on what I can tell, it doesn't seem like it was, but nonetheless, that is something I'll leave you guys to ascertain. Okay, so outside of Metro Exodus, Genesis Alpha 1 also has arrived onto Steam. That arrived just today, and this is a game that went a little bit under the radar. However, I do think this is a game that definitely was hurt by the fact that it was an EGS exclusive. However, from a publishing and developing standpoint, a game like this, there had to have been a level of uncertainty, and to get that upfront money, to have that security, I can understand why they went that route. Genesis Alpha 1 notes hyperjump into the dark recesses of space with Genesis Alpha 1, a roguelike FPS where you must build, maintain, and navigate your ship through a galaxy filled with hostile alien and human threats, explore, create, and survive the militarized space race in order to secure humanity's future. So this is $29.99 typically. It is enjoying a special launch discount, 25% off for $22.49. A game that was received relatively decently. It's got a 67 on Metacritic, which isn't an absolute home run. However, anecdotally, just based on what I've heard friends say, I didn't get to play too much of this. However, just based on what I heard around the block and whatever the case may be, I did hear relatively good things and how this was one of the more surprising games that were released last year. However, now it's on Steam. I don't think it's going to make much traction in this initial phase. However, if it does go down to, say, south of $10 at some point, I could see people picking it up then. But for now, I do see this one going by the wayside for a little bit. Maybe add it to your wish list, but for a $22.49 price tag, given the fact that it released at $30, maybe it was $40. Whatever the case may be, a year later to still be this expensive, I think you're better off waiting a little bit, but definitely want to keep on your wish list. All right, circling back to sales numbers, here's a very interesting statistics. Temtem, the Pokemon-like game published by Humble Bundle, developed by Crema, has sold 500,000 copies in early access on PC. That is an incredible number. Obviously, this is a game that is very, very reminiscent of Pokemon. The Steam reception has been really positive. 16,754 Steam user reviews, 88% positive, and why that's so good is that an 88% positive rating is already really good, but as is the case with early access games, and this is still very, very much in early access, games with an 88% approval rating, positive rating right out of the gate in early access, that's a really good sign. There have been a litany of games that have come out in early access. Maybe they'll have a mixed reception or a mostly positive at 71 to 72% in early access, but then the idea is the game gets better and better. In the case of Temtem, right out of the gate, you're talking about a very positive approval rating, and then what's going to happen when the game just gets better and better? That should bump up to 90%, maybe even it'll flirt with the idea of being overwhelmingly positive. Obviously, there have been early access titles that have been received really well right out of the gate. I believe Risk of Rain 2 is one of those said titles, but nonetheless, it is a little bit more of a rarity, and the fact that Temtem, a game that is kind of cloning another popular franchise, the fact that it has gained traction on PC, I think that's a really, really good sign, and I'm excited to see where this does go in the future. The fact is, it priced at $35, it's a good price point, and I think they did everything right with launching the game. They got the backing of Humble Bundle, which is definitely relatively significant, and good to see it doing really well. And lastly, I do want to note, for those of you guys that are excited for Resident Evil 3, and why shouldn't you be? Resident Evil 2 was phenomenal. It was noted by the Resident Evil Twitter account, quote, "It was written in the stars, a Resident Evil 3 demo is on the way. We'll have more details in the near future." So not a lot to go off of, but Resident Evil 3 is one of my most anticipated games of the year, at least definitely one of my more anticipated of the early portion of the year, since everything got delayed from your Cyberpunk 2077s and everything like that. Whatever the case may be, Based on the quality of Resident Evil 2, based on how well Capcom has been doing with all of their franchises, Resident Evil 3 is definitely going to be a game to look out for, and if it's anything like Resident Evil 2 from a quality standpoint where they can recreate it and just modernize it, that is going to be tremendous. So a demo being on the way is great. Of course, we did get an RE2 demo, so it's not like this is something out of the realm of possibility. However, still cool to see this coming to fruition. And that's going to conclude this video. Again, both Metro Exodus and Genesis Alpha 1 have returned to Steam. Metro Exodus selling very, very well despite its delayed launch. Obviously, it would have sold more had it had a day-and-day launch, but it is a balancing act when you look at that big check from EGS, and then you also ascertain how many copies of the game will you sell when you do launch it on Steam. Temtem has sold over 500,000 copies, so that's a very good number, and Resident Evil 3 demo is on the way. That's going to conclude this video. If you guys have a request for a future video, you can leave that in the comment section down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush here again. Hope you enjoyed the video. As you guys might know, YouTube's notification system is sometimes a little bit wonky, even if you're subscribed to the channel. Maybe you're not abundantly aware that I uploaded a video. To remedy that situation, make sure you hit the bell notification button. This way, whenever I upload a new video, and I try to upload as consistently as possible, you will be notified directly of the upload, and you can watch it as soon as it goes live. I would really appreciate if you guys hit that button so you can stay up to date with all of the content I'm posting. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.